Queen's University.
Funny, insightful interviews. From a watch the pictures of McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight. Here comes McKnight tonight.
Hello and welcome to McKnight Tonight, the show that isn't afraid to call it like it is. It is Wednesday, the 30th of July. Oh my gosh, we're almost in August. Can't believe how fast the year's gone, can you? Coming up tonight, YouTube joins the naughty list as the government expands its under-16 social media policy. I'll explain what's involved and what it means. Also ahead, a fiery TV moment as a journalist accuses a former AFL great of sexism live on the air. And later, a backstage pass to a current affair as insiders spill the beans on what really goes on behind the scenes of the Channel 9 show. And we mentioned YouTube. We're still on YouTube. We love YouTube. So you can leave your feedback on YouTube at youtube.com/@McKnight That's youtube.com/@McKnight I'll get to your feedback a little later. And don't forget, you can help us out by taking out a paid membership. It keeps all these lights on. And we love that. All right, there's plenty to get to in this episode of McKnight Tonight. So let's start with our hot topics. And it is official. The government today announced YouTube would be included in the under-16 social media ban set to begin on December 10, apologies. Now, I know I've covered this subject a lot recently, this week in fact, but this is an important development and there's a few things I need to take you through. So this morning, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Minister for Communications, Annika Wells, they both held a joint press conference to make the announcement. And it was a little bit emotional at the start because the PM began by acknowledging 3 parents who joined him for the announcement. Their children died because of harm caused by social media. And of course, our hearts go out to those parents and they're advocating for change. But I don't think the government has the right change, and we'll get to that. The Prime Minister began by explaining why his government is introducing this legislation.
Parents want to get their kids off their devices and onto the playing fields. They want children to be able to enjoy their childhood, and that is what this is about.
So, isn't that the job of parents to take their kids to sporting fields? It's not up to the government to legislate that kids can't use their devices in a hope to force them outside and onto sporting fields. That is the most ridiculous reasoning I've ever heard. Meanwhile, the Communications Minister had a catchy line, but did also explain what this legislation meant.
Today, we are prioritising parents ahead of platforms. We will not be intimidated by tech companies. The Albanese government is pushing forward with our mission to keep Australian kids safe online, with new rules to support our world-leading social media age restrictions. And we have a key update. In response to advice from the Safety Commissioner, the online safety rules tabled today specify which types of online services will not be captured by the social media law, including online gaming, messaging, education and health apps. These types of online services have been excluded from the minimum age obligations because they pose fewer social media harms to under-16s.
I'm a bit concerned about that line, fewer harm to under-16s, but that is the confirmation that we knew was coming, that YouTube would be involved. We've been talking about that for weeks, ever since the Safety Commissioner said she would be recommending YouTube's involvement. Originally, YouTube hadn't been involved in the under-16s social media ban, but that's an idea of what we're to expect. Annika Wells then made this point about social media platforms.
There is a place for social media. There is no place for predatory algorithms, and that's what we're cracking down on.
But you're not. You're not actually cracking down on predatory algorithms. What you're doing is banning a section of the community from being on social media. They're two very different things. I am all for a crackdown on predatory algorithms. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot these social media companies need to be doing better. But banning under-16s doesn't fix that problem. It just delays the problem, or they can still be captured in it if they work themselves around these laws. A VPN is all it takes, right? Kids get on a VPN, and if you don't know what a VPN is, don't worry, your kids do. They know how to use them. But basically, it's a way of hiding your address, your computer's address. So you could pretend that you're in the UK, you could pretend that you're in Turkey. It's a way of disguising your location. So, okay, she's very big on predatory behavior. I get that. But I don't think this does it. A journalist then asked a very important question about age verification. It's a topic we've been talking about. The UK have introduced it. I've been wondering how it will work. And this journalist asked, how would age verification work?
We are still waiting on the age assurance final recommendations to come back, and we will publish those for you as soon as possible once we get those. I'd make the distinction though, there has been 12 months allowed for this to happen. Social media platforms have been on notice since December last year that this was coming. They have had 12 months to work with the e-safety commissioner to determine what that looks like for their individual platforms. Obviously there's proprietary technology, obviously each platform works differently, obviously they're all competitors. That means they need to work on a one-on-one basis with the e-safety commissioner. But I think reasonable steps is reasonable. We are backing parents. The platforms have a responsibility, a social responsibility, as the PM would said. The onus here is on the platforms. Come 10 December, if your kid has a Facebook login, Facebook account, it is on Facebook to deactivate that account. It's not on the parent to police that on behalf of Facebook. And there are sort of 4 reasonable steps that platforms have to take. They have to deactivate existing accounts that they know. They need to make sure that no new accounts are activated. They need to take reasonable steps to make sure that any workarounds or mitigations, because kids, God bless them, are going to find a way around this, and maybe they're all going to swarm on LinkedIn. We don't know. Like, these are meant to be working rules, and they also need to sort of correct any errors as they arise, because these are not set and forget rules, these are set and support rules. They are world leading, but this is manifestly too important for us not to have a crack.
Sure, but none of that answers the basic question. How does age verification work? She said she's given the social media platforms 12 months notice, but this legislation will come in December 10. And their own working group hasn't actually worked out how to make this work. They have to take reasonable steps. Okay, if a kid has given their real age and they're 13 years old, that's easy for Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram and the like to say, okay, that's a 13-year-old, we can deactivate that account. But what is the mechanism when a new user signs up? How do they prove who they are? This is the question that hasn't been answered. There was no answer in there of the specifics that's got the whole industry, that's got people worried. Now, they did say you will not have to upload documents. So that's a good point. We don't have to do that. That was said in this press conference. So, okay, we're not uploading documents, but how are we proving how old we are? What is to stop my child from saying that they're 17? This is what we still don't have. It's very bizarre. We're 5 months away from this. The social media world is being turned upside down, and we still don't have answers on how this will work. It's all great to be world leading and first to be doing it, but how are you doing it? We talked about the UK earlier this week and their age verification laws that are causing chaos in the UK. Platforms need hard rules. We don't have those yet. Meanwhile, Channel 7's Mark Riley asked one of the most important questions about this whole issue.
I just ask parents to be hearing this and thinking it's a great thing to limit kids' access to this harmful content. But they'd also be asking, why is that harmful content there in the first place? If any of us in our media organisations were to publish or broadcast this stuff, we'd be straight up in front of ACMA or in the courts, justifiably. When will the day come when governments can stop these organisations allowing this stuff to be posted in the first place?
That's a great question, Mark, and ultimately one for the social media platforms to answer. We were saying earlier in our meeting with the parents, if you could put all of the content on social media in a library, you would never let your child walk in. And it is on social media platforms to explain why any child would be able to see age-restricted content on their platform. And that is something that the E-Safety Commissioner will work with them on each individual platform, and something we all stand together in wanting to see stamped out.
No, it's not up to the social media platforms to answer. It's up to the government to answer. Why is this content allowed out there? You are the government. You have control of what comes into this country. But in a way, while you're trying to be tough and we're going to stand up to the big tech if they try to take us to court, you really are scared of them. You don't force them to pay tax. Very few of them pay very little tax. They pay very little tax in this country. And we're not having you look at the content. As Mark Riley said, some of the content on there, if it was broadcast on television, that station would be taken off the air. Yet it's allowed to happen. They understand that there's an issue. They just don't know how to deal with it. Banning under 16s isn't the way to do it. Clean up the net. And I'm not saying we should be censoring all this content, but there should be ways of saying, this is adult content, you go there, right? Or if you start defaming a person on social media and saying, he's a pedophile, that person has the right to claim defamation, claim defense without, have you ever put in a response if someone said something really horrible about you and you've complained and they've said, oh, it doesn't violate our terms and conditions. But if you say poo, they go, oh, that's a violation. There's no consistency to the terms and conditions. And it's real problems. This is why kids are doing what they're doing with this self-harm, because there's no stopping it. And a simple under 16 ban is not the way to go. Have consequences for these companies if they don't help users have a better experience. Because this doesn't, and it shouldn't just apply to under 16s. It should apply to everyone. As a 52-year-old, I have the right to go and have a good experience. And if I'm not, if someone is harassing me and attacking me, I should have the right to go to that company and say, this is a problem, and not be ignored by that company. That's what we should be targeting here. The government understands the cause, but they've stuffed up the solution. Yes, I know, it's becoming a bit of a topic for me, an ongoing topic, that one, so bear with me. I'm still dumbfounded. Let me know your thoughts, though, in the comments section of this video. Okay, a fiery clash on Channel 7's agenda setters has got the AFL world talking. AFL legend Nick Riewoldt has slammed journalist Caroline Wilson after she accused him of sexism. It came after Riewoldt called North Melbourne President Sonia Hood's supportive coach Alistair Clarkson sycophantic. Here's how the scene played out.
Do you mean that the President and the CEO need to stick their nose into the football department?
Yep.
And so how's that going to go? How's that going to go? How's Alistair Clarkson going to react to the President who was sycophantic almost in her praise?
No.
Here's the pictures after the game.
She wasn't sycophantic.
So after the game we heard Jai Simpkin,
She was promoting the club.
Yeah, I get
that's
that.
ridiculous.
I get that. But it was. Do you mean that the President and the CEO need to stick their nose into the football department?
Yep.
And so how's that going to go? How's that going to go? How's Alistair Clarkson going to react to the President who was sycophantic almost in her praise?
No.
Here's the pictures after the game.
She wasn't sycophantic.
So after the game we heard Jai Simpkin,
She was promoting the club.
Yeah, I get
that's
that.
ridiculous.
I get that. But it was like.
No,
it was like we found.
That's bordering.
So there's
bordering on sexism. If a male president had lauded getting a premiership coach, no, sorry, Craig, I won't cop that. If a male president had lauded getting a four-time premiership coach, you wouldn't call it sycophantic. I bet you wouldn't have.
What are you talking about? Anyone that goes above, in their praise and promotion.
This was a down on their knees club.
I resent the fact that you think that's a sexist comment.
Well, I'm sticking up for Sonia. I think sycophantic
that's a ridiculous thing to say.
Just like I think Kane bullied her.
How has someone being sycophantic got anything to do with their gender?
Too sensitive.
That's ridiculous.
No, but someone's got to be because you're making ridiculous statements like that.
That's sexist. That's ridiculous.
You're wrong to say she was sycophantic.
Let's take.
She wasn't sycophantic. You should apologise to her, Nick, for calling her sycophantic.
Let's take a breath on that. The question I was asking is, do their leaders, Kane?
What a crock. To call this sexism is absolutely outrageous. She is the president of an AFL club. This is a highly prestigious position, and he has every right to call out what he thinks her position has been. He thinks in this case she was sycophantic. He's allowed to say that. And Caroline Wilson to then turn around and say that's sexist because you wouldn't call a male that? Yes, he would. Well, I would. I would call someone sycophantic, male or female. That is not sexism. just because you attack a female who happens to be the president of a football club does not make you sexist. When will we stop this? We keep going and asking for equality, but the moment that we have equality, we have a woman, female president doing her thing, and you belittle her. What you've done, Caroline Wilson, is you belittled her, turning it into a sexism issue rather than a discussion about the issue. It's not sexism. And what you have done is you've made it seem tokenistic, and you've made it seem like we can't have a go at her because she's a female. She is off limits. And that's not how it should work. Equality means that I can have a go at you the same way I would have a go at him. That's how it works. He shouldn't have to pull his punches because she's female. He had an opinion about her actions. Whether you think it's valid or not, have that argument. You think he owes her an apology? Fine, but not for being sexist. If you think he owes her an apology for using that term that you don't agree with, fine. But this was never about sexism. And even when he called you out, because you called him out on national TV, so what you did is you used something that was really high stakes. People get cancelled now with calls of being sexist and misogynistic, and you called him out on national TV. And when he stood up for himself, did you have the grace to sit there and say, okay, well, if you're saying you didn't mean it that way, I accept that, right? She made the mistake in calling it out. Fine. But when you can see, he got up in arms. He was upset about it. But she kept going. She wouldn't give in. And you can see it. The reason I let that clip go was right at the end. You can see them having a look at each other. She's like, all right, calm down. And he's not letting it go, and neither should he. You cannot make claims like that. Unfounded, unfair claims, and then expect it to be, oh, it's all right. I didn't mean anything by it. Sexism. It's a powerful bomb that you can throw any time. He didn't deserve that, and Caroline Wilson owes him an apology. Okay, now it's time for Rob's rant, and tonight's rant isn't so much of a rant, but a revelation, and it's all to do with something that happened on Monday night's show. Let's roll the footage. If you were watching, you will see that I had a moment where I looked like I was 90, squinty eyes and all. Jasmine, my daughter, was trying to show me a message. Someone had sent some feedback in, and she was trying to get me to notice it on the run. And look at, there I am, squinting away like, what? I can't read that. What's going on? And it made me realise I had that old man look. You know, I don't feel old. Sometimes I do, but, you know, I really just felt like I look old. I'm there going, what? And so, yeah, at 52, I had that moment where I thought, I'm old. Is this what it's come to? But you all know the look I'm talking about, don't you? That, so I do wear glasses. I do generally wear glasses, but I don't on the show, and it's not a vain issue. It's just that I can see the auto cue pretty clearly. So when I read my intros, I can see it pretty clear. Although I've just put these glasses on and it does look clearer. So maybe my eyes are getting worse. Maybe I should go with the glasses. Maybe I'll just mix it up a bit, but I can see the auto cue a bit clearer there. But so basically, I don't generally use my glasses when I'm doing this kind of stuff. But what I have learned is I just need to have them sitting there at the end of the table in case I need, in case Jasmine's coming up to me, because this is what she was doing. She was showing a message and she was going, and I'm trying to read that message and I just had no idea at all. So Rob's rant tonight, yeah, I'm getting old. What made you realise you're getting old? Have you hit that point where something's gone and you go, I'm getting old? That was my moment, ladies and gentlemen. That was my moment.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
Tonight's random live shot of the day takes us to Japan, but not for the usual scenic reason. We're looking at a live drone footage from above Kushiro as much of the Pacific braces for possible tsunami impacts. A massive undersea earthquake, you would have seen this in the news, estimated at magnitude 8.8, struck off the eastern coast of Russia. Around 180,000 people were close to the epicenter. Now, while tsunami warnings have gone out across the Pacific, Australia's Bureau of Meteorology says there's currently no threat to our mainland, islands or territories. But New Zealand isn't quite in the clear. Authorities there warn of strong and unusual currents and unpredictable surges, urging people to stay off beaches and away from the shoreline. And look, we're looking at this footage here and we're seeing visible movement in the waters off Kushiro. Aftershocks and residual wave activity remain possible for hours following major seismic events. So, from what I've read tonight, the waves weren't outrageous. They weren't outrageously high, but as you can see, the news organisation AP is just monitoring that situation. Let's go to your feedback, which is coming through at 1,000,000 miles per hour. And Dylan says, going casual tonight, Rob. Yes, I am. Now, there's been a bit of chatter about my list of the best and worst presenters from last night. Travis says, only person I really disagreed with was Sonia. Can't stand her. Now, Restoration Archive has said, I thought it was Have a Wine Wednesday. I do like that one. That may actually have to be our future Wednesday chatter. More wine for Robbie. Although, Own Your Own Crazy says, wine or wine Wednesday. And yes, by the way, we do know that something popped up on the screen. We don't know why it happened, and we're trying to work it out. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, but we'll get to that. All right, we'll keep on going. Own Your Own Crazy also says, I'm so glad social media wasn't around when I was younger. Yeah, it's a scary idea, isn't it? Own Your Own Crazy, Dylan says, the YouTube ban is interesting as when you read the law, it's only illegal to have an account. It's not banned to not log in and watch video content. Very good point. Restoration Archive says he agrees, or they agree with Own Your Own Crazy. At least back in the 90s when you went home from school, the bullying stopped for 12 hours, not these days. Very good point. And Restoration Archive again, I predict an explosion of 16-year-olds with VPNs, then the government will put age verification on that. Jason20AU says, I'm all for removing hate from social media. I don't support this bill due to how the verification will work. You could use AI and access the sentiment of comments, etc. if it does not pass no post. Restoration Archive says, I say ban all social media for everybody. It's a scourge on humanity. Hang on, then we wouldn't be able to all get together and watch McKnight tonight. You're all there 10 minutes early before the show talking to each other. I love it. And on that, Jeanette says the kids will get around it, which is so true. Anthony G says, the good old days where we had the Commodore 64 and the old style Nintendo console and Donkey Kong. No way for people to chat to each other online. So true. Gareth D says, all governments are struggling to tax and to rein in global tech companies. I'm proud our government is trying something. You have a better idea? Tell us. Look, I'll cop that, Gareth. I do have a better idea. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we need to legislate against the content, the hate content, and what these social media companies are letting through, because it's an issue that affects all ages. People can come at me and attack me and threaten me and do all those kind of things, and I have very few or very little ways of finding a resolution to that. The taxing issue, I agree, it's hard because what these companies do is that they take all the money that they make from Australia, then they send it to another country because they've got another part of their company that charges them for services, which is just pretty much every bit of profit they've made in this country. So they end up paying very little tax. There needs to be a way to get around that, but I'm hearing you. Thank you very much for that. We've got this one from Dylan. He says, Rob's revelation, a new segment in the making. Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Oh, look. Danny says, well, look what I just stumbled across. Look at your set. Looks amazing. Thank you, Danny. I hope you can... We're here, Danny, we are here every Monday to Thursday at 9 p.m. Hope you can come along for the ride. We've also got this one from Philip saying, I realise I am too old when the birthday candles won't fit on the cake. Own Your Own Crazy says, you know you're getting old when your eyebrows are longer than your eyelashes. Dylan, referring to the Northern Japan footage we had, we can go back to that. He's saying the smog looks strong there today. I don't know if it's smog or clouds. I don't know how high that drone is up, but as we can see, there's not much happening there as far as the waves go. That looks pretty manageable, but it could be deceiving. Yeah. Okay, well, that's what's coming through to McKnight tonight. Keep your feedback coming. We love your feedback. And don't forget, we're here. We've got more coming up on McKnight tonight, but send your feedback. Put it in the comments section of this video. You are watching McKnight Tonight. Well, as Australia gets closer to banning under 16s from social media, the UK... That doesn't look right, does it? Why have we run an old clip? I think we're having a little problem, and guess what? I'm sort of trying to do multiple things here. Look, I'm going to put the music up for a moment and try to work out what's going on. So bear with me for 1 second. You're going to see a bit of the magic. I'm going to unclip here and see what's happened. So just listen to the music for a moment. Okay, I know what happened. We had a little issue with some elements we pre-prepared, and a clip was meant to play, and it came back to something old. So that's what happens sometimes. But hey, this is McKnight Tonight, and we are live. Here comes McKnight Tonight. Okay, a British reporter is raising alarms about global media coverage from Gaza. David Collier alleges that images of an emaciated Gaza toddler, widely presented as proof of mass starvation, were circulated without disclosing the child's pre-existing medical condition. It's forced the New York Times to issue a clarification, acknowledging the boy suffers from cerebral palsy and hypoxemia, conditions independent of hunger. Collier says the photograph was weaponized to push a narrative. This is really unfortunate. That image went around the world and was seen as proof of the starvation happening in Gaza. This is really unfortunate because there is starvation happening in Gaza, but critics will take a photo like this and now the story behind it and the clarification from the New York Times and say it's all fake news, that term fake news, to discredit anything. The fact is the New York Times says as soon as they found out, they put out a clarification. But the problem is, whose narrative does it suit? There is starvation happening in Gaza, whatever side of politics you're on. It is happening. No matter what the Israeli president says, he says there is no starvation. Well, there is. We've seen enough footage to see that. We may not have that emaciated child, or we may not have seen pictures to that extent, but you see pictures, you see images on the news, and you can see people are starving. This is really complicated. We're getting closer to a two-state solution, which has been coming for a long time. But I can't blame Israel for fighting back after those horrible events of October 7. That was horrific. And I do not know enough about this conflict over so many years to really be able to sit here in my internet home on the Gold Coast and say what should happen. What I do like is we seem to be edging closer towards a solution. But we also can't have kids starving. And this picture and the way it has been used has now opened up critics to be able to say, it's all fake. But sometimes there is grey. Okay, there are ongoing conditions with this child. I'm sure the lack of food has not helped this situation. But there are plenty of other examples. People begging for food. Aid trucks not being able to get through. We need a balance in how we do this and how we find a peace. Because unless both sides come together, this is just going to keep on going on and going on and going on for hundreds more years. Nobody needs that. Nobody should want that. Hamas is a problem. For the people of Gaza and the people of Israel, we need to find a way Palestinians and Israelis can come together. Two-state solution to this uneducated fool seems like the way forward.
Fun, insightful interviews from a Washington to some McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight. Here comes McKnight tonight.
Well, if you love going behind the scenes of television shows, just like me, then you'll love a new offering from Channel 9. They've launched a new podcast called That's ACA, which promises to share unique insights into the making of the hit show. Reporters Lizzie Pearl and Steve Marshall are the hosts, and they join me now. Welcome to McKnight Tonight, guys.
G'day, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Now, Lizzie, I don't think you'll be short of stories for this podcast. How far are you willing to go?
Look, we'll go right back into the archives, Rob. There's no story we aren't too afraid to share. So anything that has happened is on the table. It's fair game as far as I'm concerned. And I just want to say, before we get into this, Rob, I am so pumped for McKnight Tonight. I don't know if you remember, back in the day when we were at Channel 9 in Willoughby, we used to do our fair share of heckling, teasing, borderline perhaps bullying about you and McKnight Tonight, and I'm so glad it's finally happened.
Yeah, congrats, Rob.
Lizzie, well, you know me, when no one else will make it happen, I will do it myself.
Exactly. You've got your own merch as well.
Oh, yeah, the cups are available. We're getting a new supply of cups available at youtube.com/@McKnight. Thanks for letting me get the plug in. Steve, moving on from the world of McKnight, I know TV companies are looking for extra content, but how did you get this idea across the line? Because telling stories about what goes on behind the scenes of ACCA, that can be dangerous.
Yeah, look, it can, Rob, so we're quite sensitive in that regard. But Lizzie and I actually sit opposite each other, but we don't actually see each other a hell of a lot, do we? Mm. Yeah, so, because we work different days. So look, we get chatting. Yeah, we get chatting about what we've been up to, and
I couldn't honestly.
And here we go. We've got some action here, but we got chatting about what we've been up to. And we thought, you know what? We get asked this all the time at barbecues, at dinners, when we're just knocking about with our friends. So we thought, why don't we get together and do it in a podcast form? And we've got a wonderful producer called Naomi Tan on board. And she's here now, and Naomi's been sorting us out with some fantastic episodes. So all we have to do, basically, Rob, is turn up and chat.
Well, I love that. I've actually got a clip from one of the podcast episodes. Let's take a look at what we can expect.
The reason why he was inside, he'd been making a disguise.
Oh, what? Out of what?
So he'd got like a shopping bag.
Yeah.
Put it over his cut 2 eye holes.
No.
This is true story.
Yeah.
Put it over his head. In the eye holes, he'd put his reading glasses on the outside, walked out the door of the court, and then put a big umbrella over him.
Wow.
And made his way off down the street. Wait.
Well, who are you?
What's good? Who are you? Oh, my phone. All right, they came up. Come on. Home rats won't go away. So annoying.
If it's all hocus pocus, can you say, abracadabra, here's your peg?
I bring pick the door, I can pick money.
It's called a current affair of Australia. No, what I like.
It's what we done.
Certainly looks like a lot of fun, Lizzie.
Oh, it's so much fun. I've only just recently, I say in the last year and a half, joined the current affair team. And I just love the freedom that we have here to tell stories in a longer form, to cover things that might not necessarily make the daily news cycle. And that's where we do find those weird and wonderful characters that do make a current affair. And there's no shortage of them, Rob. You'd think by now we would have run out of dodgy tradies. But there's more. Every week there's more. And it's just it's a wonderful program, and it has a lot of power too, because there is such a huge viewership of a current affair. We can actually really make a lot of difference in people's lives. And that power comes from the viewers because there's so many of them.
No, I'm certainly a fan of the show, but I am old enough to remember your very first live cross at Channel 9, Lizzie, all those years ago.
Oh, yeah?
I remember it too, Rob. I was shaking like a leaf. And if the soundo had the microphone on me, they would have heard my heartbeat. Absolutely hacking it. But I do remember coming back into the office. You were there, our old news.
Everyone gave you a round of applause.
And a bottle of champagne because I didn't make a mistake. But yeah, I was very, very, very nervous. That was a long time ago now, Rob. You are showing your age, but
I am.
my age too.
I love the idea, though. They had the bottle of champagne and they went, oh, no, she didn't do too good a job. We'll put that away. But no, it wasn't, mate. We got the champagne.
Gee, the budgets are better back then, mate.
Oh, yeah.
You think now? Back, mate.
I tell you what, Steve, I don't know if you know this, but I actually used to work on a current affair in the promos department. Mate, I tell you what, those promo meetings were a world in themselves. And back in the day, they used to go on for an hour, 2 hours, and there would be a team of us all fighting for the right tone of the promo and telling each other we're idiots and trying to get a line in. I bet it's not like that anymore, but it was certainly very passionate, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and some of those lines you came up with back then, Rob, are absolute crackers, absolute belters. But that was back then, right? And times do change. So the show has evolved with, society. As society changes, the show has evolved with that. I mean, it's been going for, 50-odd years now, the show. So it's a survivor, Rob, and it has to survive because the people rely on it. A lot of our stories come from viewers, people writing in.
Yep.
Every night we get emails about what's going on in people's lives, and they're very brave to do so as well, Rob. So we treat that very seriously because it's people's livelihoods that, we are affecting in one way or another, for better or worse, right, Lizzie?
Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that we're going to be taking people behind the scenes with this podcast. Everything from the rowdy promo meetings to how the story has gone from being an email to a 6 or 7 minute piece you'll see on the show at 7 o'clock every night. Because people love to know what goes on behind the scenes, and it's something that we hopefully can show people a lot more of.
Yeah, because the story also evolves along the way, Rob, as you know, where you have one idea that you set out to do, but as you talk to people along the way, and even talk to the person who might be a target of yours, things do change. So you've got to pivot, don't you? We're doing an episode about pivot. Yeah.
Right before our very own.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can shed more light on when that happens as well.
Well, it'd be fantastic. I'm a big fan of the format. I do think it can make a lot of change. You can have a lot of fun with ACCA and it's referred to in fun ways with the chases and the neighbourhood disputes. But then there are long-form interviews that are really compelling, and there's change you guys make. People know that when they have a problem, whether it's a consumer problem or an issue with council or government, they can go to ACCA and get results and get change. And that's the power of the show, and that's what it does.
We had an example on just recently with TikTok.
Yeah.
A woman was on our program who was having all sorts of problems with TikTok because there were scam accounts impersonating her and asking people to donate to fictitious charities. She tried to get TikTok to shut the accounts down. No. As soon as ACCA gets involved, the accounts are shut down.
Yeah, done.
And it's such a shame that we have to get involved, but I'm glad that we can. It's sort of a double-edged sword, isn't it? We shouldn't have to get involved, but it's that when we do make a phone call, people listen and people act.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's important is that it rates. It's the biggest rater on TV, because it's all good to do a social service, but in TV world, in commercial TV, ratings that matter. That's ACA is available across all major podcast platforms and in video format, as you saw on YouTube. Lizzie Pearl and Steve Marshall, thank you for joining us on McKnight Tonight.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having us, Rob.
Okay, let's take a look at the feedback. Justine says, the suspense. What was the problem? Who was to blame? I vote Rob. Yep, it was my fault, Justine. So thanks for pointing that out. Look, the fact is, that photo doesn't even look real. Restoration Archive, I'll come to that in just a second. But it's interesting, isn't it, Justine, that there's 3 people who put this show to air that I think looks like a professional show. But sometimes we don't have all the extra people doing double checks and things like that. And tonight we were cutting things very close to the wire, which is why I think a few things haven't gone as smoothly. But we're living, we have lives, we have appointments and all that kind of stuff. So we do what we can. It's an internet show. We're doing it for free. And thankfully you guys support it. But yes, sometimes the wheels come off. But you know what? I've worked on programs with $7, $8, $9, $10 million budgets, and the wheels still come off those shows. There's differences. There's just more people to yell and scream about it. All right. Restoration Archive. That photo doesn't even look real. Yeah, but it was a real photo, and that was the crazy thing about that. Over the page we go, and we'll have a look at this next one. Own Your Own Crazy. Pity that narrative was still relevant. Although it undermines the real issue. And that's my point too, Own Your Own Crazy. I completely agree with that. Thank you for your feedback. And we've got this one from Dylan. Lots of gremlins tonight. Yeah, and as I say, Dylan, we do what we can. Over the page we go. Philip says, so much history with ACCA, right back to 1971 with Mike Willesee. Amazing 9 has stuck with the format. And it's still rating, Philip. It's still rating. Thank you, Jazzy. Over the page we go. Own Your Own Crazy says, Benjamin Netanyahu, I wish I could say his name, is probably the most hated person on the planet right now. He hasn't done Israel many favours, actually. He had all the goodwill in the world after October 7, and, I'm still supportive of the people. There was so many atrocities during that. But, it's certainly a complicated issue. Okay, over the page we go. Dylan says, anyone notice ACCA got a new graphics package? Yeah, I think it looks terrific. It's needed an update. What else have we got there, Jasmine? We've got Own Your Own Crazy. No one seems to have picked up the mantle since Yasser Arafat died 20 years ago. That's certainly true. And I've got this, Justine's come back to me and said, you guys do an amazing job. I just wanted to have a dig at you. It's all right, Justine. We can take it. Don't you worry about that. I tell you what, after that, I will need a drink, though. But I tell you what, the only thing I've got here at the moment is Jeanette's Orange Snakes. Now, this is just from one packet. Was it one packet, Amanda? Oh, it was a couple of packets. This is all that came out Orange Snakes wise from a couple of packets. So, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to some of those original Orange Snakes. I'm trying to hold on to them because I don't want to waste them all at once because we hate those new flavours. Thanks for your company tonight. We'll try and sort out the gremlins for tomorrow, and we will see you for another edition of McKnight Tonight. Have a great night, everyone.
McKnight Tonight. It's good.